back. I'm over here in the corner. We are talking about habits of the mind and how to begin to change those or work with those, especially with mindfulness. This I just want to talk about. We talked about the brain and its negativity bias, and so one of the things we can begin to do, and we have to do it mindfully. That's why it's part of mindfulness. Is begin consciously building a positivity bias. It's another practice that can be done. And you can spend a few minutes a day consciously looking for positive things in your environment. This is a mindfulness practice. It's about, okay, today we've got, oh, excuse me, my dog. I'm going to pause this for a moment. So I'm going to introduce you to this dog because he is what interrupted us. And you might as well see him because you might hear him again. This is Sachi. This is my puppy. All right, I'm putting him down. Okay. So we're talking about building a positivity bias. So if you were to choose a practice that said, okay, for 5 minutes, I am going to be in my environment, wherever that is, at work, at school, at home, wherever, and I am going to the grocery store, anything, I am going to consciously seek out positive things. That can be noticing, noticing a mom and a kid playing or hugging or laughing, noticing that the sky is blue today, or that the temperature is perfect, or that you get a really nice parking place, or whatever it may be. And I say look for the small things. And when you find them, take a moment to really feel the good in them. Rather, we're trying to make Velcro for the positive. So you notice something positive, maybe breathe in 3 times and just really consider the positive and the good in that thing. And, I just think that we begin to train the brain to scan for the positive. It's very set up. It knows how to scan for threats or challenges. Sometimes we have to be conscious about scanning for what's good in our lives and in the world. And so but we have to be mindful about it. And then when we notice something, we mindfully take a moment, breathe it in, and really hold that like we would something negative, right? So, and then another part of it that we can flip to if we want is to become the good for someone else. Mindfully look for opportunities to do small things without any expectation. Holding a door, saying thank you to someone who does something for you, and doing it mindfully, noticing that we do it, giving a bar or some change to the homeless person, and doing it without expectation or worry about what it means. Simply doing it to practice noticing what's good and being the good. So that's how we begin to build a positivity bias in a very mindful way. Another thing we can work on mindfully, and what positive psychology talked about a lot in last week's information, is optimism. So how do we begin to build optimism as a skill? How do we grow that inside of us? So I want you to just, for a moment, I want you to look at this picture and see what you see. See if you can see anything. Just a bunch of black and white dots. Do you notice, is there a picture of something that you notice? Just see what first comes to mind. And then if I show you this picture, do you see the dog? Can you see the dog? It's outlined there in red, the Dalmatian, right? And so then when we go back to this picture, can you see the dog? Do you notice it? And you'll probably never be able to see this picture again if you saw the dog without noticing it. So what does this mean in terms of optimism? Well, the whole point of this is that optimism is about how we connect the dots of what we see in the world and in our lives and in the moment. Does something happen and we connect the dots negatively? Or do we connect the dots with fear or challenge? Or do we connect the dots with opportunity or even positivity? Sometimes that's really hard, right? I get it. I understand. But we can begin doing this as a habit in small ways in our day. I have a friend who's a faculty member at Front Range, and she said she took on a practice for I think it was just 7 days. At the end of each day, she would write down things that irritated her during the day. And it could be just small things, not the big stuff, but the little stuff that just caused maybe the hassles. we've talked about the hassles, right? So the hassles of the day and how they were irritating. And then she would try to write down 3 ways that she could connect the dots differently around those. What could she find that was a better way to look at that? And then she found by the end of those 7 days, she was having a harder time finding the hassles, finding the irritants. And so sometimes it's just how we approach and look at the world, the lens through which we look. And can we at least be aware of that and mindful of it? And any time that we're looking at something and we are consciously seeking another way to look at it, we have to be mindful towards that. We have to focus our attention in a different way. And that's mindfulness. Um, oh, I was going to give an example of this. So you could think about, I don't know why I don't have the picture up here, I'm sorry. Imagine being in on I-25, I-25 here in Denver, or any really backed up road. But anyway, you're in a traffic jam. You're sitting in a parking lot on the highway. And that is a huge irritant for many of us, anything that happens on the road. So think about being in that traffic jam. And can you find 3 things that could be turned around and made positive about that experience? So you can pause me for a moment and think about that. And so students will often say things like, it's an opportunity for me to, if you have a Bluetooth, make a phone call that I need to make that might take me some time. It's an opportunity for me to listen longer to a blog, I'm sorry, a podcast, or um, music that I like, or an audio book that I want to hear. It gives me opportunity to think, to reflect, to be mindful. So there's many different ways that we can look at things that we don't often take the time to. And sometimes it's about um, something that we'll call post-traumatic growth. Can we find the good even in a really difficult or challenging situation? That'll come up later, and it can be hard, but it's practice. It's regular practice of looking through a different lens, and consciously doing it, especially if it's not something that's natural to us. That can be tough, and so we make a practice out of that, and we do it mindfully. All right, so what happiness habits are you willing to create in your own life? So for this week, for this, and you actually have about 2 weeks to practice to do this, but this practice week, think about a mindfulness practice, and there are some things you can read on, that I've given you to read on mindfulness, meditation. um, Tai Chi is a movement mindfulness. I have information on mindful walking. There's mindful eating. There's contemplative prayer, if that is better for you. There's all kinds of mindfulness practices out there, and I would like you to choose one that you will practice for 4 days out of 7. So even if you have 10, 12 days to do this, I'd like you to choose a 7-day period and do it for 4 days in that 7 days. Don't expect huge changes in 4 days, but I want you to at least get used to something, because towards the end of this semester, when you have to do something for a more extended period of time, it might be a mindfulness practice, and I just want you to kind of get a taste of it for right now. So choose a practice for yourself, and see what it brings. All right, so that's the end of this, and of the screencast for this week, and I wish you well. Be well. Bye.